Welcome back, y'all. This is the Bluechip Breakdown, and I'm your host, Bull. Today, we'll be taking a look, as y'all can see, at the SEC picture and talking about the playoffs, all that good stuff. The CFP stuff doesn't come out until tomorrow night. But for Tennessee to have a good chance, I think, to make it to the college football playoffs, we need to be shooting to make it to the conference title. And there actually is a path for that to happen. It's not as crazy as some people might think that it is. So we'll go through all that. We'll talk about all the tiebreakers because there's still several teams in the SEC that are not done with their SEC schedule. Georgia's done. So, they're pretty much locked in where they're at. But for Tennessee to get to the SEC conference game, I think that we're going to have to play Georgia again. I don't know if we can make it again without seeing Georgia. And that's exactly what I want. So we'll talk about all that stuff. Obviously, we have to talk about the tiebreaker rules. And I'll tell you exactly what has to happen for Tennessee to make it to the SEC championship. Because at this point, y'all, we don't know what the people voting on the, CFP rankings are going to do. I feel like they're showing a whole lot of Big Ten favoritism. The Big Ten will probably end up getting in 4 teams. So if they get in 4, then the SEC will probably also get in 4. But if they only get in 3, Indiana's playing, I think, Ohio State this weekend. If Indiana falls, and if Indiana falls out of the playoff race, which they should, then the SEC could get in 5 teams. And Tennessee has a much better shot to make it. But we're going to go through all that. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. All right, y'all, these are the tiebreaker rules to get to the SEC championship game. And this is straight from the SEC's website, okay? Everything will be ranked from A to F and what they're looking at first. And if there's still a tie, like let's say after A, which is head-to-head, if there's still a tie there, then they'll go on down to B, so on and so forth. So going back to A, right, head-to-head competition, we already know that there's some issues there because Tennessee beat Alabama, but Alabama beat Georgia. And if all 3 of those teams finish at 6-2 in the SEC, then, they'll go past A and then they'll look at B, which is this record versus all common conference opponents. Okay. At C, it's going to be the record versus the highest ranked conference opponents. At D, it's going to be about the winning percentage versus the conference opponents that each team played. And then at E, they're going to be looking at the, margin of victory or, margin of loss, whatever, versus conference opponents. And then at F, they're going to call this a random draw. I don't think it's going to be random by any means. We know how the SEC gets down. We do not want to see any so-called random draws happening for our Volunteers. All right, now that we know the tiebreaker rules, let me show you my path to Atlanta for our Tennessee Volunteers. This probably isn't the only path. If y'all can think of one yourself, then please share with us down in the comments section. But for me, everything that we're going to be looking at today has got to happen for Tennessee to make it to the conference title game to face Georgia. And it doesn't mean that we can't still make it to the conference or to the college football playoffs if we don't go to the conference title game. So let's keep that in mind too. But number one, Texas has got to lose to Kentucky because they beat Arkansas, who beat us. And if they lose to Kentucky, then they will have lost to a team that we beat. So that helps with all the tiebreaker stuff. That's going to be a long shot because the game's going to be played in Austin. Now, we do know that Austin isn't that difficult of a place to play, relatively speaking, to all these other SEC programs. So it could happen, but it does kind of feel like Kentucky's giving up on their season. Next, they will be going to Arlington to play up against Texas A&M. And it wouldn't really matter who wins that game per se, as long as A&M loses to Auburn this weekend. We absolutely need for both of those things to happen. So it's going to be a really big weekend for us. But if that happens, like I just said, we would hold some tiebreakers versus both of those teams. But the biggest thing for me is going to be about the margin of victory. Tennessee only has one more SEC game left. We got to put up, or, we need to win by as many points as possible. If we could win by like 70 points, that puts us in a good spot, man, for all these tie-breaking purposes. So I will just get that out the way. But also, Georgia, man, they only have UMass. Then they got Tech. So no more SEC games left for them. Again, we're talking about us going to the conference title game to play Georgia. But, if they could lose to Georgia Tech, I think that would be good just to kind of get them out of the, playoff race. But the SEC championship game would then turn to like an elimination game at that point because whoever wins between Tennessee and Georgia would go on to the college football playoffs. Now, there is still a situation where maybe, both teams make it to the college football playoffs, but, that's on down the line. We'll talk about that some more tomorrow once we see the actual rankings. But then we have Alabama. It's probably going to be in Tennessee's best interest for them to win out. As much as I hate to say that, it's just true. If they win out, then we've got a stronger win, over most of these teams in the SEC except for Georgia. And then we have Ole Miss, who's going to be going down to the Swamp to play Florida. That's a game that I really think that they could lose. But really, with all the implications, not just for the SEC conference game, but for all the implications, we need for Ole Miss to lose to one of these two teams, either Florida or Mississippi State. Obviously, there's a much higher probability that they will lose to Florida in the Swamp because Florida does have a pretty good defense. They've got a pretty solid team. I could definitely see that happening. And if it does happen, Tennessee, we're in a really good spot to make it to the college football playoffs because like I talked about, I think 4 teams will make it from the SEC, and Texas A&M have to play one another. One of those guys will end up being eliminated more than likely. So even outside of this situation, Ole Miss losing puts Tennessee in a very, very good spot. So those are my thoughts right there, man. Please share yours with me down in the comment section. We will be coming back tomorrow after we see the official CFP rankings, and we'll kind of round this stuff all up and say exactly where Tennessee's at. But thank y'all so much for sticking all the way to the end, and please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share it with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.